Jacob deGrom is an all-star for the Texas Rangers. You know who else on his team is joining him? Every single hitter that deserves it, which is none of them.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a criminally addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Jacob deGrom making his first all-star team with the Texas Rangers, his first all-star team in 4 seasons. We're going to talk a little bit about this weekend series and why the Rangers cannot afford to lose basically almost any more series until the trade deadline. Before we get into all of that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, the Texas Rangers have exactly one all-star this year, and it is the most deserving player on this team. Their ace, Jacob freaking deGrom. What a season he has had so far to this point. He is the only Texas Rangers all-star. I think there was one snub. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I want to start with Jacob freaking deGrom. At age 37, his now 5th all-star team, which feels insane because he has 7 different top 10 Cy Young finishes, but 2 fewer, or at least until this point, he had 2 fewer All-Star appearances than he did top 10 Cy Young finishes. But this is a year that he is 110% deserving. 17 starts on the year, over 100 innings, exactly 100 strikeouts, a 2.13 ERA. He has been just straight up untouchable, and that's even with the first month or so of the season where he was fine. He wasn't great, but he was just kind of fine. But since that first month of the season, oh my goodness, he has been absolutely stellar. I mean, in the month of April and March, he allowed a 650 OPS to opponents. He had a 2.73 ERA. That's fine. It's not a bad month by any stretch of the means, but it wasn't quite Jacob deGrom. Then in May, he goes and he has 5 starts, a 2.08 ERA in that month, averaging over 6 innings per start in 30 and a third innings. Then he has 5 starts in June where he was the AL pitcher of the month. Actually, he was the Rangers pitcher of the month. I'm not sure he was the AL pitcher of the month, but he absolutely should have been with a 1.41 ERA. No, it was the AL pitcher of the month because that's the first monthly award Jacob deGrom has ever won in his career. He went 4-0 in his 5 starts in the month of June, a 1.41 ERA in 32 innings. This guy was just unstoppable in the month of June, including that near no-hitter, a near perfect game against the Baltimore Orioles, including of just a whole bunch of truly exceptional starts this year. And he has been everything the Rangers have been hoping he would be since he arrived in Texas 2 years ago. This is that dude. And even in his whole Texas tenure, you add up those 9 starts that he had in the first 2 seasons in Texas, he's had a cumulative 2.21 ERA in 26 starts, 159 strikeouts. That's 10.1 Ks per 9, 1.6 walks per 9, fewer than a home run per 9. He has just been most consistent player all season long for these Texas Rangers. He has just been everything the Rangers had asked for. And it's been a minute since he has, signed this contract. It has been a while to get him fully healthy, fully acclimated, fully at the top and the peak of his powers. But he's there. He is absolutely there. There was just so much doubt and consternation when the Rangers signed him to that 5-year deal. They thought, this guy's washed. This guy's over the hill. This guy's barely pitched the last couple of seasons, and not remembering how incredibly good he was when he pitched those last couple of seasons before he was a member of the Texas Rangers. I mean, the final 2 seasons he pitched a combined 26 games. It was 150 something innings, 156 and a third innings of just absolutely some of the most dominant bit of pitching we've ever seen from anyone in the history of ever. And he was 35 when he signed a 5-year deal. He's going to be 40 at the end of that deal. And when he had Tommy John surgery in the first year of that deal, the second Tommy John surgery he's ever had, most people said, okay, well, that was a huge failure. What a stupid thing the Texas Rangers did. I can't believe they spent all this money on this guy, and they're not even going to be good. They're just a flash in the pan because we were, 3 months into that season? We still didn't know if the 2023 Texas Rangers were any good. Spoiler alert, they were incredibly good. They won the World Series. I enjoyed that very thoroughly. And so did Jacob deGrom. But coming back, I mean, taking a long time to get back. It was August of last year, or September, I think, of last year before he even got back for those 3 starts where he looked mostly like Jacob deGrom. But again, only 10 and 2/3 innings in 3 starts. You thought, okay, well, he's going to go into this year. He's going to have a fully healthy offseason for the first time in 5 years. It was heading into the 2019 season. That was the last time he had a normal offseason routine, because heading into that 2020 season, he was fully healthy, but it was a pandemic shortened season. So not exactly what you call a normal offseason. But the reason why I kept banging the drum that Jacob deGrom is going to be worth this, because whenever he's on the hill, he's never, ever been bad. He has never had a bad season ever. The worst season of his career, he had a 3.53 ERA, 31 starts that year. He had over 200 innings and 239 strikeouts, and he finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. He finished 8th. That's the worst year of his career. That's insane. That's insanely level of talented. He did that back in 2017. And also, Jacob deGrom was not a pitcher until he was drafted. He pitched a little bit in college, but mostly he was a shortstop in DeLand, Florida, at Stetson University. But because of that, even though he is a little bit on the older side, he didn't have as many miles, as many pitches, as much wear and tear on his arm as the average 37-year-old of his stature might. Not that there are very many 37-year-olds that have his stature. So for him to be able to come back, that's why I was almost more optimistic that he could come back like we saw Justin Verlander do, and dominate to this level. And I think he might sustain it a little bit better than Verlander did. Verlander came back from his, I believe, maybe that was his first Tommy John surgery. I think it was his first Tommy John surgery at age 38 or whatever. And he won a Cy Young, and he looked incredible for the Houston Astros in 2022. But he had so many miles on his arm. He had so many pitches that he had thrown. He's still pitching okay in San Francisco at the age of 41, 42, however old he is at this point. But I think Jacob deGrom's got several great more seasons in him. Now, how many innings is he going to end up at this year? I'm not entirely sure. Is he going to make 30 starts? Maybe if you add in the postseason starts, if the Rangers even get there, which you look at the rest of this roster and they probably won't. But Jacob deGrom has absolutely earned this. And the only one on this Rangers roster who didn't make the All-Star team that I think should, you look at all these hitters, you think, no, not a single one. This is the first time the Rangers haven't had an All-Star hitter since 2017, which I think the Rangers should have had at least one All-Star hitter that year. I mean, Elvis Andrus had a 6-WAR season. He hit almost 300 that year. That was the year he had 25 steals and 20 homers. And, he looked incredible that year at shortstop. But I digress. It has been a long time since the Rangers haven't had an All-Star hitter. But I think the other player who should have been joining him is Nathan Eovaldi, who I think might be the most egregious snub of all these All-Star rosters. We're going to talk about why and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When I was using Monarch, I checked out and saw a bigger view of my finances. I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. And I was like, okay, well, with Monarch, I can see, all right, that's a bit too much for that. I need to budget a little bit better. With Monarch, it made it so darn easy. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow, we'll be talking about the first game of this series against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. We have got a week's worth of some late night games, so get your coffee ready because it is going to be a long week heading up to this All-Star team. But this All-Star game, which is exactly 1 week away, and a guy who I don't know if he will end up being an injury replacement. I don't think that he would pitch even if he was selected, but he should have been selected, and that is Nathan freaking Eovaldi. He has a 1.75 ERA through 14 starts, more than a strikeout per 9, half a homer per 9, a walk and a half per 9. He has been exceptional at limiting runs, and if not for that tricep issue, he might be in first place in the AL Cy Young voting race. Like, he has just been that darn good. And he's not that far away from being among the qualifiers for the ERA title. And if he was among the qualifiers for the ERA title, I believe that he would be at least the American League leader with that 1.75 ERA. At this point, it seems like it'd be pretty close. Yeah, no, he'd be ahead of Hunter Brown, who is at 1.82. And he is the only other pitcher in the American League who has a sub-2 ERA. deGrom is in third place in that ERA race at 2.13, Tarek Skubal at 2.02. I mean, my goodness, there have been so many darn good pitchers this year, and that's not to take away anything from them. I mean, Garrett Crochet has been phenomenal this year, a sub 2.4 ERA. Chris Bubich has a 2.36. He's been really, really darn good for those Kansas City Royals. Brian Wu, a sub 3 ERA. Yusei Kikuchi, also a sub 3 ERA. So many guys with really good ERAs, but not many guys with sub 2 ERAs. Nathan Eovaldi has been having the best season of his career. I know he's missed a little bit of time, about a month, but when he's been on the hill, he has been maybe the best Rangers pitcher all season long. He's got a better ERA than Jacob deGrom. He has only 3 fewer starts. Granted, it's nearly 25 or 24-ish. Yes, 24 innings fewer than deGrom, but he has been on par. He has a 2.9 Baseball Reference WAR this season. That would be that is one of the best among all pitchers in baseball. He has just been so darn good. It is just outside the top 10. The 10th place in Baseball Reference WAR is Seth Lugo at 3.0. He is 0.1 WAR away. So I'm sure that if Nathan Eovaldi has a Nathan Eovaldi-like start in this Tuesday game against the Angels, then he will get that ERA closer to he will get his innings limit closer to being among the qualifiers for those ERA season titles, and also get his Baseball Reference WAR into that top 10 on Tuesday. I feel pretty darn confident in him doing that, but it has been frustrating to see Nathan Eovaldi be just a little bit robbed from his All-Star bid. But the Rangers only having one All-Star, it's kind of fitting. But if every day was this most recent Saturday, then the Rangers would have an all-star catcher, and that would be Kyle Higashioka. But alas, every day is not Saturday, but this was an incredible game from Kyle Higashioka. A 3-hit, 5 RBI day in the one game that the Rangers ended up winning this weekend. He had an incredible outing, including his second homer of the year. Maybe he just needs to hit in Petco more often, and that can just lead to his offense being fully unlocked. Maybe that's what led to his career season last year. I mean, he had a pretty substantial split between home and road OPS last year. And, well, we are all done with games that Kyle Higashioka is going to be playing in San Diego this year, unless the Rangers trade him to San Diego at the deadline, which is possible. But 5 RBIs and 3 hits from the catching spot is a huge, Huge deal. The Rangers got a little bit of offense from their leadoff spot as well. A multi-hit day from Josh Smith, including a leadoff homer on the very first pitch of the game. But the Rangers were able to hold that lead for all that long. Patrick Corbin giving up a 2-run massive bomb in the bottom of the second, but he locked down and did not allow a single other run for the remainder of his 6 innings pitched. He looked mostly pretty good, worked around a little bit of traffic, but the Rangers were able to get some hits with runners in scoring position, something they hadn't done all season long and something they didn't do the whole rest of this weekend, but 3 for 7 on the day, only 6 runners left on base. And the Rangers, they were pretty darn aggressive on the base pass this weekend. Kyle Higashioka had his first stolen base of the season. Kevin Carter had his 11th stolen base of the season. I mean, Martin Maldonado, a guy who is, kind of billed as a guy who is good defensively as a catcher and has not actually been that for several seasons. The Rangers just ran wild this weekend, including the Friday game, the 4th of July game, where Evan Carter had a pair of stolen bases. Zeke Duran also had a stolen base as well, and Evan Carter did end up getting picked off, but this is just a good running weekend for these Rangers. Did not steal any bases on the Sunday game, but still a good weekend in terms of the base running for these Texas Rangers, and honestly a pretty solid weekend overall for the starting pitching. On Friday, on that 4th of July game, it wasn't Kumar Rocker's fault that the Rangers weren't able to come away with the win, because he did his job, going 5 1/3 innings, striking out just 4, allowing a couple of walks, including 2 runs, 1 earned, including one on a massive bomb by Manny Machado, his 14th of the season. He has been on a tear this season. The Rangers were able to keep Manny Machado, who was, I believe, 4 or 5 hits away heading into this weekend series from his 2000th career major league hit. He had a couple of hits on Friday. Then I believe he went over. No, he had 1 hit on Saturday. And then on Sunday, he was not able to get any more hits. He is now 2 away from 2000. But the Rangers, good on him for keeping him away from that little milestone, so it didn't have to be celebrated against a Texas Rangers pitcher. But this was a good another good step forward for Kumar Rocker. He was able to get bailed out a little bit by Hoby Milner in that 6th inning to come away with only 1 run allowed in that 6th inning. The Rangers offense, though, it was the same story as always. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. 1 for 12 with just 2 extra base hits on the entire day. It just not much could be done, even with the Rangers, running well with a couple of stolen bases from Evan Carter, with that stolen base from Zeke Duran, his 4th of the season. It was just not enough, because the Rangers are impossible when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, getting clutch hits. I mean, the Rangers got 5 hits and 6 walks in this one. They had plenty of base runners, but all the runs came on a Marcus Semien 2 RBI double, and that was it. That was all the Rangers could muster in this one, because they have just the absolute opposite of a clutch gene. And man, it is incredibly frustrating to watch. And it was a little frustrating to watch on Sunday Night Baseball when Jack Leiter, who was racking up the strikeouts, but was also racking up an incredibly high pitch count. This was yet another example of Jack Leiter excelling at getting to 2 strikes, and then once he got there, not being able to finish hitters off, especially Manny Machado, who, though he didn't have a hit on that Sunday Night Baseball game, he worked some incredible plate appearances, including, I believe, a 6-pitch strikeout his first one, and then an 11-pitch strikeout in his second plate appearance, really just ratcheting up that pitch count for Jack Leiter to the point where he couldn't make it through 4 innings. Raiders had to get Jacob Latz in there, and he pitched 3 innings of solid work. And even with Luke Jackson's inning in a third, the Rangers only had to use, really 1 high leverage reliever. Latz is kind of looking like he is more of a bulk. Latz is looking like such a Swiss Army knife of a weapon. Sometimes he can start, sometimes he can go in 1 inning high leverage spots, sometimes he can just bridge the gap when the starter kind of poops the bed. And I mean, if you have your long man having a 3.02 ERA and coming in and being able to get you 3 innings of 2-run ball, it's not ideal. He got worked a little bit, only had 1 strikeout in that game, allowed 5 hits and 3 walks and a couple of runs that he was kind of trying to work around but couldn't quite do it. But the Rangers, again, not much offense to be spared. I mean, the Raiders got a hit, a couple of hits, and a run off of David Morgan in that first inning. They had some really high quality plate appearances. I mean, Josh Smith leads off with a single. Corey Seager follows that up with a double. Marcus Simeon strikes out on what is a 6-pitch at bat. So still working some counts. Adolis Garcia chimes in with a hit. Evan Carter reaches on a fielder's choice. Wyatt Langford walks, and then Jonah Heim hits what should be a 2 RBI single up the middle. But Jake Cronenworth just has the series of his life against the Rangers, including several defensive highlight plays and I believe at least 2 home runs and just so many hits for their second baseman slash first baseman slash play wherever the heck you want him to in Jake Cronenworth, who just not quite single-handedly ruined the series for the Texas Rangers, but had a huge hand in the Rangers losing this series, something that they cannot afford to keep doing. We're going to talk about how much they need to win before that trade deadline for Chris Young to not pull the plug on this season. All that and more right after this. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. After every single game, Jeff Biggs is in your feed talking Locked On Rangers postcast after every single game. You can find it in your Locked On Rangers podcast feed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. But this Rangers team dropping 2 out of 3, including just 2 infuriating could have been wins, especially that Friday game. The Rangers, when you only get less than 4 innings out of your starter and your offense just can't do anything against a bullpen game against what is maybe the best bullpen in all of baseball. I mean, you have so many different looks out there for this San Diego bullpen that, normally I get incredibly frustrated when this Ranger team can't hit a bullpen day, which has been their weakness since 2023. That was the only thing that stopped the Texas Rangers offense in 2023 was bullpen games. And thankfully it didn't do that in the World Series when the Diamondbacks decided to pitch a bullpen day. But in the regular season for the past 3 seasons, this Rangers offense has been very susceptible to the bullpen game. But I mean, Kyle Hart going 3 2/3 innings of perfect baseball was incredibly frustrating. But once he was able to hand it over to those final 4 relievers of Jeremiah Estrada, who has a 3.2 ERA and throws a freaking 100 miles an hour. Jason Adam, who is an all-star, he had his 20th hold of the season. He has a 1.6 ERA. He has been just incredibly nasty against righties and lefties. Adrian Morejon, who has a sub-2 ERA, is a lefty who runs it up there all the way to 100 miles an hour. He was an incredible starter for a couple of years, but injury issues kind of limited him the last couple of years. But in the pen this year and last year as well, he has absolutely thrived. And then you have Robert Suarez, who throws 75% fastballs, all of them in the upper 90s to, I believe, 102 is what he's maxed out at this year. And all of them are pretty much unhittable. It felt like a losing game for this Texas Rangers team. And, it's been that way since the Rangers have been down this whole season. It's felt like, and the data backs it up, that, once the Rangers do not have the lead, there goes offense. No more offense. Bye-bye offense. Although, really, the offense has been so bad, it's hard to differentiate what's worse than just the standard level of bad offense. But when the Rangers have been behind in games, they have a 576 OPS. 576. That is horrible. I'm trying to look at anyone who has a 576 OPS on the year. That is, a little bit worse than what Dustin Harris did on the year. That's about a little bit worse than a little bit better than what Tucker Barnhart did in 15 plate appearances this year. That it's not ideal. It's actually very unideal. The last time the Texas Rangers even came back from a 2-run deficit, was that game against the Chicago White Sox, where they just barely kept themselves from being swept. I believe that was the game in Chicago. But this is another series loss, and the Rangers can't afford much, if not any, more serious losses from now until, they're going to have a serious loss between now and the All-Star break because they're going to Houston. And the Houston Astros just went into LA and curb stomped the Dodgers. They have been very annoyingly the best baseball team in Major League Baseball since the start of May, which, again, my hopes of the Astros finally crumbling down, even with Yordan Alvarez doing absolutely nothing this year, even with all the pitching injuries they have. Very frustrating that they are still as good as they are. So the AL West chase is by far gone. I have less than zero hope that anybody but the Houston Astros is going to win, because the Seattle Mariners are 7 games back, and the Rangers are 11 games back here a week before the All-Star break. That's not ideal. The Rangers keep slipping in that wild card chase as well. I mean, the Rangers are 4 games back in the AL wild card of those Seattle Mariners. Now, at least with the Angels and the Twins kind of falling on hard times right now, the Angels are on an L3. Hopefully the Rangers can make that an L7 with this week, with a opportunity, and a much needed opportunity to mop the Angels in Anaheim, a team that is on the fritz and has been performing well over their skis. I mean, they're 43-46. Their expected wins-loss record is significantly worse than their actual wins-loss record. It's 3 games worse. They are just half a game worse than the Rangers at this point. The Rangers are 1 game ahead of them in the win column and tied in the loss column. Right now, the only team in between the Rangers and Seattle is Boston at 46-45. The Rangers at 44-46. Maybe eventually they'll get back to 500, but they need to do it freaking quickly, because you look at these series between now and the All-Star break. They've got a few series against the Angels. They got this 4-game series against the Angels. They've got a 3-game series in Anaheim again at the end of this month. They also have 1 game in Seattle for what would be a crucial series on the day that the trade deadline is happening at the very end of July. But in between now and then, that's when the Rangers have to decide if they're going to be sellers or if they're going to be buyers. And, with your best trade chip on the IL until, at least August 11th in Tyler Mahle, the Rangers just need to stack up these wins to even attempt at a buy. But I don't even know what the Rangers would buy. They just keep from selling off at this point. That's what the Rangers would be trying to do by keeping up and stacking the wins. Maybe the Rangers sneak into that final wild card spot. And again, I really do think that if this team sneaks into a wild card spot, they can do some damage, because if you have Jacob deGrom with what he's doing right now as your number 1 in any series, and then you throw out Nathan Eovaldi, who has already been incredible this year, and then you take what he's been this year and you level it up to postseason form of Nathan Eovaldi, that's a scary, scary good pitcher. And then if you bring back Tyler Mahle, he looks anything near what he's been this season as your number 3. And then who knows what you do with your 4 at that point. Maybe I think at this point, I would probably go with Kumar Rocker. And then you have a Jack Leiter, you have maybe a John Gray at that point in the pen, coming out there and throwing absolute gas and the nastiest breakers that the Rangers would have in their bullpen at that point. That's a team that, even with this absolutely anemic offense, could go on a run. You just have to keep yourself alive to get there, because you have 4 games in Anaheim, then you have 4 games in Houston. And bookending that All-Star break, which the Rangers just very desperately need, maybe they can go home and remember that they're actually good at hitting and come back after the All-Star break good at hitting. But heading into the All-Star break, you have 3 games in Houston. And then after the All-Star break, you have 3 games against Detroit, who has been one of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball for the entirety of the season. Outside of that, the Rangers have 3 very winnable should-win series. They've got a 3-game series against the A's at home. They should crush them if they want to have any hopes of keeping their playoff hopes alive at that point. Then, at the end of the month, the 25th through the 27th, they have 3 games against the Braves, who are in a similar spot to the Rangers, except without the historically great pitching staff. They just have a mostly pretty good starting rotation that has suffered a lot of injuries, a terrible bullpen, and a slightly better offense than the Rangers have right now. And then they have 3 games in Anaheim. So the Rangers basically can't afford to lose almost any series, and they need to sweep at least 1, if not 2, of these remaining series between now and the trade deadline, just to keep them from selling off at the break, because the Rangers aren't going to sell off any core pieces, I don't think. I think they're going to try and run it back and come back next year and compete. But if Nathan Eovaldi wasn't under contract for another 2 seasons after this, if Jacob deGrom wasn't in a similar spot, I don't see a scenario where the Rangers sell off either of those guys. I don't see that being a possibility unless they want to just sell off everything at that point. And I don't think that they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to trade off Seager and Semyon and just start a full-on rebuild just 2 years after that World Series with a lot of key pieces that, while they haven't been good this year, definitely have potential to be less than terrible for the remainder of this season and next season and come back with every intention of competing yet again. But every loss, every series loss is getting even more suffocating the hopes of this season that have already been slowly asphyxiating from the start of this year. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.